Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to our 11th Career Ed Talks. And today's focus is hospitality and tourism. We have three amazing local business professionals that are in the hospitality and tourism field. Before we start, I'm going to share my screen and just kind of go through this infographic. Can everyone see? Awesome. So hospitality and tourism offers educational opportunities, training services, and related learning support with an emphasis on improving education services. The pathways include restaurant and food, beverage services, lodging, travel, tourism, recreation, and amusements and attraction. Currently, throughout the state of Florida, we have almost 79,000 enrollments in high school programs and almost 31,000 in middle school programs. So that's pretty impressive. I'm assuming a lot of them are probably culinary. And in that culinary program, they focus on the Serve Safe industry certification. Also do some Pro Start, front desk supervisor, and then of course, as with all of our clusters, Microsoft Office specialist is important to have those background skills. The top high school programs, like I said, culinary, principles of food, nutrition and wellness, all the way down to hospitality, tourism management, and hospitality and tourism. So you can see over here is an example of an articulation pathway and what you could get in high school that would articulate to an AS degree and how much that could possibly save you in state college tuition savings. So high schoolers, if you are in this program, you are getting a head start. So it's very smart of you. And then these are post-secondary and employment. So this would be after high school. Right now, the growth rate is 1.65%. And then the high wage is about $32 an hour. And every year, there are almost 2,000 openings in this field, especially in the state of Florida. This is a field that is very high needs. Lots of hospitality and tourism going on here. So we will go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you to our panelists for being on here today. Welcome to our classrooms. Hi, Mr. Shell in your class. My name is Kelly Thawley. I'm career specialist here at the school district for Lee County. And then I will go ahead and turn it over to Brandy.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Brandy Fulgham. I am a new career specialist with Career and Tech Ed, and I'm glad to be here.
Stella, did you want to do a quick introduction?
I'm sorry, Kelly, who'd you call in?
Stella.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm Stella Egan. I'm the Student Career and College Navigator for the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools.
Thanks for joining us, Stella. Nicole, did you want to do a quick intro as well?
I'm Nicole Bailey. I work in Career and Tech Ed, used to teach at South, go Wolfpack. And I oversee the culinary and the hospitality and tourism programs.
Thank you. And then our panelists today, I'll do a very brief introduction for each of them, and then we will start with a question that we'll throw out to all three of them. So to start with, we have Fred Fung. He is the General Manager and COO of Bonita Bay Club. We also have Bob Smitty Smith joining us. He is the owner of Global Restaurant Superstore, and that is located on Metro. And then we also have Jay Johnson, who is the owner of Bubba's Roadhouse and also the FRLA president for Lee County. So thank you to all three of you for joining us. And let's start with the question of just what is your background? So how did you get involved with hospitality and tourism? What degrees do you have, certifications? What kind of pathway did you take to get to where you are now? So we will start with Fred.
Well, good morning, Kelly. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I hope everyone's doing well. For me, my history is sort of simple and not too exciting. That I've known since a very early age, when I was 12 years old, exactly what I wanted to do. I was visiting with my father down in Fort Lauderdale, and his old college roommate happened to be in the hospitality field. He was the general manager of a resort in Fort Lauderdale. So we were waiting for him by the pool to have lunch. And, this kid that I guess I was, how old is that? 6th, 7th grade. And here comes Uncle Clive. We call him Uncle Clive. He's not really my uncle, but he comes towards us. And this is back in 1979 or 1980. And he's wearing a bright pink blazer, canary yellow pants, and docksiders. And he comes walking through the pool deck, and he's shaking hands, kissing babies, waving to people. I turned to my father and I said, that's what I want to do. And so at a fairly early age, I knew exactly what that was. And that was some sort of hospitality. I knew what he did, which was hotels and resorts. So I went to Penn State, got a degree in hospitality management, went to work with Hilton Hotels in their management development program. And I've been doing that for the last 30 plus years, with one minor change in transitioning from hotels and resorts into a different area of hospitality, which is private clubs. Did that about 13 years ago. And it's an amazing industry to be in, because it's so diverse and so wide in terms of scope and availability for people to do a variety of different type of jobs.
Thank you. And also the opportunity to travel, I'm sure, it's needed everywhere. So you can go wherever with this type of degree and certification. Let's jump over to Smitty. Can you kind of give us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Good morning. I've been in the restaurant equipment business now for about 8 years. It was a total jump in the fence because I was in the restaurant business for over 40 years. So I kind of started my restaurant business, as silly as it seems, but at 10 years old, I get a tomato basket, put it to the handlebars of my bike, and there was a luncheonette called M&J's. And every morning during the summer, I would ride down, get coffee and donuts, and serve them to the guys that were worked up in the cemetery. Crazy as it sounds, but the truth. So I went from there to doing dishes at 14. And at 19 years old, I bought that little luncheonette. And I ran that, just me and my mother, for 2 years until I went on the police department. So I was on the police department for 11 years, and I catered, had a pizza place, but I really missed the day-to-day restaurant business, and there was no way we could do them both. So we bought a 100-seat deli and got back in the food business for full time. I ended up getting the contract at General Electric's world headquarters in Pittsfield, Massachusetts for their plastics division. And I ended up doing 7 or 8 locations for them over the course of the next 20 years, which included catering at Augusta National for the Masters. So while I was there, I opened a restaurant in Augusta, about a mile from the back gate, from gate 6. And over the course of those 20 years, I had over 300 employees in like 16 different locations. So I started at the beginning, and I worked my way through it and went on to be an owner. And I can tell you, it's absolutely awesome. And I can tell you, it's also absolutely very hard work. So you got to be prepared for it. But I think it's very, very rewarding. So I ended up selling everything, and my son wanted to get into the restaurant equipment business. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. But I could tell these kids, don't think you're only going to be a cook or a server or this or that. There's so many great things you could do in this hospitality and food business. So best of luck.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very good point. Lots of opportunity for growing and changing and just getting your foot in the door, being a dishwasher, and then figuring out what direction you want to go, all the way up to management and ownership. Jay, let's go ahead and come over to you.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to join you this morning. And like Fred and Smitty, it seems like we all started young. At 10 years old, I had my first dishwashing job. And I got promoted about a year later. Got a quarter an hour raise, and was able to take the trash out because I was finally tall enough to reach the dumpster. So it continued from there. Moved into the food prep area. This was in a family restaurant. We had a family restaurant chain in Northeast Ohio. I did that through high school. Also worked for McDonald's to learn their systems. I mean, all the grief that people give McDonald's about how it's what a chain they are, but they have very good systems, and they're able to implement the same systems around the world. And I think that's important to remember, is even though they're a fast food restaurant that no one looks as a serious business, they have the systems in place to make thousands of restaurants the same around the world. And that's very tough to do. So from high school, I went to the University of Denver, where I have a degree in hotel restaurant management. And when I came out of DU, I went to work for Sheraton Hotels. And I worked for Sheraton for 12 years, did the travel that you spoke of. I was in Los Angeles, Miami, Seattle, Orlando, Chicago, LA, and Tucson. And I left Sheraton as a hotel manager and moved here. And now I have Bubba's Roadhouse and Saloon in Cape Coral, which is a full service restaurant and catering business. We do on-site catering. We come to you. We've been to some of the school districts. Fred, if you ever need anything at Bonita Bay, we'd be happy to go to any of your locations, including your beach spot down on Hickory Boulevard. And so we continue to drive every day and continue to push.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Wow, this is awesome. Thank you all for being here. It's very broad and diverse, and it's great for the students to hear all these different stories and the pathways that you all took to get to where you are. The one key thing I heard was that you started young. So students, something to keep in mind is if that's something you're interested in, get started now. Don't wait until after high school. Go ahead and figure out how you can put yourself in that situation to set yourself up for success. Next question. The students always love to hear funny stories or an experience where you learned a lesson. So I'm going to start with Fred because I know I gave you a heads up on this question, and then that gives Jay and Smitty a chance to think about your answer. Either a funny story or a time that you learned something through some kind of experience.
Well, first I have to just compliment and just say how impressed I was that Jay was promoted by the time he was 11 years old. This is before child labor laws, I guess. In a family-owned restaurant, sometime, and you probably got paid in quarters, right?
I was paid a quarter an hour when I started.
That's a great question, Kelly. I was thinking about that overnight, and I don't know that it was so much that I learned, but maybe that I was inspired and it offered a moment of clarity. It was just last month. And in this time of the pandemic with COVID and all the things that are going along with that, we've all had to make adjustments. I know that Jay has had to make serious adjustments being in, like we are in the service business in the restaurant side. We have 6 restaurants here at Bonita Bay, and we had to make adjustments in the beginning. We had to shut restaurants, then we could open up for outdoor dining, then we could open up limited seating and so on and so forth. But in other areas, because we happen to be one of the 10 largest golf country clubs in the nation. So we've got 2 campuses and 5 golf courses and spas and fitness centers and barbershops and resort pools and restaurants and the like. We have an area where, some people, we only allowed members to go to participate and partake in the amenities, and we did not allow any outside guests. Which is different than a publicly accessed restaurant or hotel. We only allowed members to come in here, and some people rely heavily on the use of those amenities for guests, including the restaurants and the spas and things like that, and the trainers and the golf teachers and things. So what we did last month is we looked at the previous 6 months and said, hey, compare that to last year before the pandemic. And let's look to see if you made less money than you did last year, which in a lot of cases that did happen. we put together an employee relief fund, and we're able to disperse monies to those people who were significantly negatively impacted, in addition to whatever else they got through the federal government and packages and PPP loans and things like that. But we cut these checks about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and one of the senior managers was giving that check to one of their spa massage therapists. And the person opened it up and she started to cry. And she said, "I'm sorry that I'm so emotional, but I have a bill sitting at home that is within 10 cents of the amount of this check. I had no way of paying it, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And, this is helping me survive." And it was that where, I kind of look at when people say, why do I do what I do? I do what I do because I want to make some level of incremental positive difference in someone's life. And that can be a member, that can be an employee, that can be someone other than me. And that's what keeps me going. And that was a really inspiring time during a really difficult period of everyone's life. So that was sort of my most memorable and inspirational stories of late.
Oh, what a great story. Oh, that's awesome. And that goes to show that that's what the hospitality and tourism field is. You do it for service and to be of service of others, whether they are guests or your own employees. Let's jump over to Jay. Do you have a story, a lesson you've learned, or inspirational, funny story?
I do. I don't know that I want to follow Fred's though. But one of the things that I think this industry has taught me over the years, and it's a real basic need that everyone has to eat and to connect. And it's important, and we're able to do that and put both of those together. And through those experiences, I've had the opportunities and have been lucky enough to meet people that I probably never would have met otherwise. We've hosted presidents in our restaurant. I've been able to feed the Prince of Monaco here in Fort Myers when he came in. And those are just things that I'm able to do because of the industry we're in. Regardless of who you are, everyone has the basic need of wanting to be accepted, wanting to be taken care of, and everyone needs to eat. And it's one of the things that levels the playing field and allows me to take cooks and students and the rest of our staff and put them in situations that they never had the opportunity to do if it weren't for this industry. And it's difficult to narrow it down to just one example, but I think it's important to realize everyone's got to eat. Everyone has to eat 3 times a day, sometimes more, and we're there to feed them and to take care of them. And it's more than just a business. It's also a connection point that we have, and we're able to make connections and inroads with people that you may think are out of reach.
Thank you. Let's jump over to Smitty.
Well, having been, there's been an awful lot of crazy stories, between we had also owned one of the first microbreweries in the state of Massachusetts, and we had a nightclub attached to it. So, when you're owning a combination of Italian restaurants, that along with the GE Plastics part, you got to see a lot of different things. But I think the biggest thing, inspirational, was that I thought, when we got the GE contract, there's an old expression. I know the teachers won't like this, but you sometimes got to fake it till you make it. And, I was certainly no way as good a chef or cook as some of the people that were also trying to get that contract. We were also bidding against a lot of big name companies at the time, like Canteen, Marriott. But I think the one thing kids need to know, and I try and enforce this with my grandkids too, is that if you have the opportunity to get in front of someone that may be, of higher status or whoever, don't give away that opportunity. You need to stand up. You need to look that person in the eye. You need to shake their hand and tell them how great it is to meet them. And you know what? Don't forget that person. because there'll be another time that you're going to run across that person, and hopefully he'll remember you. And if he doesn't, you need to remind him. And, you know, so I think getting the G contract was really a big thing for me because it opened up a lot of doors. I ended up, you know, also having the executive dining room where I fed, you know, presidents of all the major plastic companies all over the world, including, I mean, Jack Welch, you know, Jeff ML. I mean, we ended up spent 16 years in Augusta at the Masters. And I got the, you know, feed Phil Mickelson, Billy Mayfair, Mark Calcavecchia. So, I mean, it really was an opportunity. And I just think there's a lot of crazy stories. We've all had them, you name it, you know. But I really think the important part is don't give away your future. And don't, you know, it can take one little thing that sets you off the wrong path, but there's so many great opportunities to do great things. And again, it's most of it nowadays, it's all in who you know, and it's important to know as many people as you can.
Very
That's
good
it.
advice. Good advice. Thank you. I do have a couple of questions that's coming into the chat from Mr. Shell's class. One of them is, if you were a young person who's getting a food truck donated to you, how would you start planning a menu? So I'm gonna throw this one over to Jay. I think that's a good starting point. So planning a menu for a food truck.
I think one of the biggest things when you plan a menu is you have to remember who the menu's for. You know, you're not making the menu for what you want to eat. You need to make the menu for what your guests want to eat. And I think that gets lost a lot. Sometimes they can be one and the same, but it's not always. So with the food truck, I think you have the opportunity to change your menu more frequently and to add and take things away based on where the location is of that truck. And we do some of the similar things. We don't have a truck anymore, but we do events, and we customize the menu for every event based on what we think will sell, based on the group. You know, if I'm feeding a group of high school students, it's completely different than feeding a group of senior citizens. And the foods are different, and you need to be flexible in your menuing, especially in a food truck. You have the ability to do that. So that's probably not the answer they were looking for. I'm not going to write a menu for you, but you have to know that that menu at a food truck is very flexible and that you're not tied into anything, and you have the ability to change it based on your audience. And I think that's the best thing you need to do, is be what your audience needs you to be.
Thank you. Fred or Smitty, either of you want to hop in on that one?
I'll add to that. I think Jay brought up some really good points. He brought up one that I really wasn't thinking of, where you can have a catering food truck as opposed to sort of that dedicated food truck that you see that's the same sort of food truck. It's the taquerito, or it's the noodle place, or it's the barbecue food truck, or whatever it might be. And I say that knowing your audience is critical. And I'd say the other thing that a lot of people try to do, whether it's restaurants or it's a food truck, but maybe a food truck is even more important, is not to try to be everything to everyone. And that's a mistake that a lot of places, especially private clubs, try to do, because we literally have members who are 35 years old, and we have members who are 100 years old. And if you try to accommodate everyone's palate, you'll dilute the entire experience. So you have to choose your lane, do it really well, know your audience, and do it. And that's what you'll become known for, as opposed to trying to satisfy everyone. And then you never create or solidify any real identity.
Thank you. Smitty, anything to add?
Yep. Okay, you ready for the sell? If I was opening a food truck, I would come to Global Restaurant Superstore and let us help you not only with your menu, but a food truck's no good if the equipment you got in it can't cook the food you need to sell what you want to sell. So That's my little commercial. But anyway, I really think both of those guys had a great, a great idea. And you can't be everything to everybody. And, not only a food truck, but we help on a daily basis. Somebody is here talking to us about a menu and what kind of menu, what kind of equipment do we need to do this type of food. So, I mean, it's something we do all the time. And I think it was important that you can't be everything to everybody. And I think there's too many places out there that are trying to do that. And I think you'll see the people that are succeeding, okay, are the people that pick a core of 5 to 10 items and then do those items really well, And Jay brought up a great point because we see it all the time with people opening a new restaurant. They want to cook the food they like. And sooner or later, you're going to realize in this business, the only thing that matters is the money in your pocket. So, if you want to cook what you like, you should do that at home. But if you're going to open a restaurant or a country club, you really got to cook what's profitable and what the people are going to enjoy. That's it.
Thank you. Next question is, what does a normal look like for all of you? And I know that it probably changes from day to day. So in your mind, just think of a typical day and just kind of walk us through that typical day. What are some duties that you would be doing? Let's start with Jay.
Well, that's a tough question because there's no true typical day. My day, I'll use my day today. I started out at a little before 8 this morning with some meetings from home. And then I'm going to go into the restaurant. We have a small group of 26 coming in for lunch today on top of our normal lunch business. Chances are I'll probably end up cooking at some point because we're looking for cooks. Anyone out there is a cook, we'd love to talk to you. Fred, I've tried to steal one of your cooks, you won't leave. Anyway, from there, I'll try to get some office work in, and then I'll be cooking the rest of the night because we are short staffed. But my days can vary from anywhere from a short day of 8 hours to a long day. I start at 7, finish at 2 in the morning. The days vary. Every day is different. There's not one typical day. I spend very little time sitting at a desk. I spend more time out in my business. As I said earlier, we cater. I attend almost every event. So I'm out at event sites, which can be anywhere in Lee, Collier, Charlotte County. And you have to learn quickly and adapt once you arrive at a site. So every day is different. Every day is a challenge.
Jay, one day I talked to you and you told me what your average step count was a day. I forget what that was, but I know it was high. What was it?
On days of events, I'm upwards of 25,000 to 30,000 steps. On event days, on a slow day, I'm right around 10,000 steps. But yet I'm still fat, so go figure that.
So if you're looking for a career where you are not sitting behind a desk, hospitality and tourism is one to look into. Fred, what does a typical day or just some of your duties include?
Well, first to sort of piggyback onto what Jay mentioned, it is in terms of hours, a lot of people ask, well, how many hours do you work? And for me, the range over my career has been anywhere from 40 hours. I've never really worked less than that, but can be upwards of averaging over 100 hours in a week. And so when I was opening up a new hotel, and Jay was in the hotel business prior to buying his restaurant, he knows what that's like. And the thing that's important, and I think today's generation, the younger generation, has a lot more interests outside of work, where I think in Smitty's and Jay's and my generation, we are identified by what we did as opposed to our outside interests. And in some respects, you know, we sort of value that, but in some respects, I value and really admire what the younger generations look at, because they have a lot more balance in their lives. But to me, I don't look at how many hours I work. I feel like I have a job to do, and I hold myself and other people hold me to a very high level. And sometimes that takes 40 hours a week, and sometimes it takes 80 or 90 hours in a week. And it really depends on what's going on. So to answer your original question, which is sort of what that entails, it's very wide scope. One of the things I like most about my job is that I have some administrative responsibilities. We run a fairly large business with over 500 employees and 15 or so different departments. But at the same time, a lot of my job is being out and being visible and being engaging and creating connections and relationships. When people say, "What do you do?" Someone asked me that once, and I had to pause a second. And usually, I'm not short of words. And my answer was, it might surprise you. My answer was, I don't do a lot. And I think because they were referring to tasks. What type of things do I do? And I said, the most important thing that I do is delegate while still maintaining control. So I have 12 direct reports, and then all of the 500 people report up into varying levels of that leadership group. And my feeling is I'm there to support them, make sure that they have the tools to be successful, eliminate barriers, and maximize their potential. So I'm only successful if the dishwasher and the cook and the guy that's loading the golf bags is successful. And so I focus a lot more on them and ensuring that they're happy, that they're engaged, that when Jay calls up one of our cooks, that they say, you know, I'm really happy at Bonita Bay Club because I like the culture. It's a great place to be. I'm paid a fair wage. Sometimes a quarter makes a difference. And sometimes, but hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully the culture is more important than or as important as the money.
Thank you. Smitty.
Well, again, this is a whole different world, the past 8 years, because all the rest of the food service years, my day started anywhere between 7 and ended at 11. The good thing is about owning your own restaurant is that I had to spend a certain amount of time at GE, but I would go from location to location to all the different restaurants. But the good thing was when you own your own business, there's a lot of times that you could break away. Like most days, I always was home late in the afternoon around 4 o'clock, see the kids get off the bus, try to have dinner somewhat, and then it was always back to more of the bars at night. So, you know, there is, and I agree with both Jay and Fred, there is no such thing as a normal day. It just don't work that way. In the business I'm in now, you know, the older I get, the earlier I get up. So I'm up and on the computer at 6:30 and usually in work no later than 8. But like a normal day, it's trying to get equipment in for people, you know, trying to fight the daily stuff of business. And, you know, this morning, for example, we have 2 bottle coolers, one going to Doc Ford's on the beach, one going to Lonnie Kai. So, you know, you got to try and get all that stuff loaded quickly on the truck so that you're not wasting an hour and a half in line trying to get to the beach. So, and back to Bruno's of Brooklyn in the afternoon to do an ice machine and stuff. So it's basically just balancing, you know, trying to get as much done through the course of the day and trying to keep the customer happy. You know, with online sales right now, anybody could pick up the phone and buy online, right? But it doesn't do anybody else any good because, first of all, none of those online places are in town. None of them support local business. And I think it's important, you know, it's funny, you hear so many restaurants and stuff, they say, you know, support local business. Well, supporting local business is a two-way street. You can't ask for the support and then buy online too. So I think it's important that we learn that, you know, buying local not only for me, but for everybody in the industry, does everybody in the good. You pay real estate taxes, you pay, all the employees pay their taxes. So I think it's a good thing, and it's great. We've been very, very fortunate to have a lot of local, loyal customers that stay with us, and they realize the value in, you know, if they need something, we're there. And even though we're only open 9 to 5, I mean, I get calls 7 in the morning, 7 at night, 9 at night, you know, I still answer them, where, you know, the online guys will never do that. I think that's what's important. You wanna be able to help your customer. So.
Yeah, going above and beyond and making sure that you're fostering those relationships, definitely important. Next question. I'm looking through the chat. Question from the classroom. What are top 2 traits that you think people in this industry should possess? So what type of personality traits would a student need to have to be successful in this industry? Let's start with Jay.
That's a great question. I think the traits that work well in this industry is timeliness, be on time. We live in a world of time. And I know Fred can tell you this, when your event starts at 12:45, you're going to need to be set by 12:30. Otherwise, everything's going to break loose. I had to censor myself there. We have kids. You know, you need to be on, you're always on time. Your events don't wait for you. Your job doesn't wait for you. You know, when you're scheduled at 4, be there before, be there 5 minutes early. I think the timeliness and punctuality is one of the traits that is extremely important in this industry, because we live by the clock. The other thing that I think is important is to be outgoing, be friendly, and understand and accept people for what they are. I think the acceptance of people and being outgoing and friendly and timeliness, those are the important traits. You know, when I hire, I look for a personality type as opposed to a skill set. You know, because I can teach someone how to wait tables. I can't teach them how to be friendly and nice and have that beautiful smile and walk to the table. Good afternoon, welcome, we're glad to have you here. You know, we talk about how you can fake it. Some things you can't fake. And I think that personality traits is what we look for more than the skill set.
Very good points. Smitty.
Okay. So I think, you know, I think Jay hit the nail on the head. In this business, time is money. So, you know, if you're someone that comes to work every day 10 minutes late, you know, sooner or later, that doesn't only impact you, but it impacts the other members of your team. And I think it's real important. I know a guy you say, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. And that's kind of, you know, kind of the way it should be. I think, like Jay said, time is very, very important. And I think loyalty becomes important, because in a time like this, people can job hop. And, you know, it's too often, and you see it a lot more now than you used to. Because I know back when I owned, you know, I had 6 restaurants in Pittsfield, Mass. And if somebody left me to go to somebody else, I raised heck about it. Because yes, if the guy was getting a better, you know, if he was going from a line cook to an executive chef job, or, you know, a sous chef, I would never hold anybody back. But I think people tend to think the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. You know, we've always heard that, you know, growing up as a kid. And I think you got to realize that, you know, sometimes it's better to stick with the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And, you know, I think loyalty to your boss is very good. And more important than anything is your attitude. If you got a bad attitude, I don't care what job you're in, whether it's hospitality or food service, you're just not going to make it, So 3 things I think are time, loyalty, and attitude.
Very good points. Very good points, especially with attitude. I mean, that's across the board. That is any career field that you're going into. You have to have a good attitude. And I think being on time is something that is very underrated anymore. So students, if you want to stand out, be early. That is the one thing that's very easy and within your control. I remember in high school, I used to set my clock 5 minutes early to trick myself into thinking that it was 5 minutes earlier so that I would be on time for school. So if you have to do that, do that. Fred, let's jump over to you.
One thing I think that's really important that Smitty mentioned was, he mentioned the concept of loyalty. And that's something that our generation, Jay, Smitty, myself, we value because that's what we grew up with. And as I mentioned before, that's not something that you see as prevalent in the younger generations. And part of that is because they've been through different things. They've been through economic downturns where their parents were laid off, and they go, well, why would I stay with that company? But just keep in mind, a lot of the places that you'll go to work for are run by Smitty's and Jay's and Fred's. And we do value that. So you can differentiate yourself by being 5 minutes early. It's something we value. When someone shows up late for an interview, it's really hard for them to recover with me. If there's a typo on their resume or their application, it's really hard to recover from that for me, because especially if it's a cover letter that they had time to be able to generate. So, keeping that in mind is important. You can stand out by the small things, and as Jay mentioned, know your audience. So often we'll be your audience because the people that are going to hire you are from a different generation. So learn a little bit about us and what we value. I think that it complementary to what Smitty and Jay said, attitude's huge. I've always said that there's only two things that will limit the trajectory or the destination and how far someone can go in the hospitality industry, and that's attitude, and it's also aptitude. So you have to have a good attitude. If you are not super outgoing, I always thought like Jay, well, you can't fake a good attitude. You can't fake a smile. Until I did watch an interesting TED Talks by Amy Cuddy, and it was on the power pose. And one of the things that she talked about was not fake it till you make it, fake it till you become it. And that there's some physical attributes and things that you can do, like taking up a lot of space, that will increase physiologically your confidence. So if you're a little bit more introverted, you're going into an interview, watch that. And I can tell you from personal experience, I've actually used that and it works. And I'm not a shy person to begin with, but if I'm in a situation where it's a little bit intimidating, I can gain confidence by incorporating some of those things. But the other important thing is you still need to have some aptitude. So in Jay's restaurant, you might get hired as a line cook because you work somewhere else, but you're not going to get promoted unless you are a good employee, you have a good attitude, but you also have some of the aptitude to take that next step. So I see more people limited by a bad attitude and much less limited by the aptitude, but we do have some technological trade and skills even within our business here. We have culinarians, we have people that take care of the golf course, we have maintenance engineers and things like that. So on my side, as much as I like to say that I'm in the relationship business and that's the most important thing, interesting thing is for us, we're actually not for profit. Most of the better member-owned private clubs are by design, they're not for profit, and we have a tax advantage for doing that. We don't pay any income tax because we are not for profit, and we just spread the costs around to the membership in terms of whatever it costs. But I still manage a $35 million business, and if my break-even goal ends up costing $2 million, that money needs to come from somewhere. So you need to have that aptitude to be able to understand how to run that. Jay is not going to be in business for that much longer at Bubba's Roadhouse if he cannot make a profit and make a reasonable living at doing that, because then why do it? Why doesn't he just work somewhere as opposed to owning it if he can't sustain what lifestyle that he's accustomed to or that he needs in order to continue that venture? And the same thing with Smitty and his family.
Oh, very good points. Thank you. Looking at the chat, we have about 10 more minutes. Mr. Shell did want me, Jay, to tell you that he met you when he was DJing at he was working a bridal show at the booth next to you. And he said that you owe him a s'more.
We'll work on that for him. What school?
South Fort Myers High School.
All right.
One of the questions the students want to know is, what is a book that you would recommend? This is a great question. I'm going to actually keep this. What's a book that you would recommend to the students to read? And anyone can take this.
I can start. I actually have two favorite books, and they're both on leadership, and they're both completely different. So one of them was by, I think Smitty mentioned Jack Welch earlier in the call, was his number 2 at GE named Larry Bossidy. He wrote a book called Execution, and it was all about, in true Jack Welch style, who is one of the great leaders in corporate American history, is that the only thing that matters is results. So tear away all the fluff, and you better deliver, otherwise you're gone. So, Jack Welch would say, you've got 3 different groups of classes within your company. You've got the high achievers, your A players, your B players, which are sort of your middle 70%, and that you should terminate the bottom performing 20% of your workforce every year. That's a little harsh, but the moral of this story, Execution, was about delivering results, and that's what's important. That you can learn all about leadership and execution and all these things, but if you're not delivering the results, you're not going to survive too long. So that's sort of the brass tacks sort of book that was my favorite. But my favorite book I've read in the last 10 years is called The Advantage. And it's a book about building culture. And as I grow older within my role and also within the workforce, I find that I value that more than anything else. When we talk about loyalty, there's a reason why at the place I work at, and I have 12 people that are my direct reports, that there is a average tenure at this club of 18 years among those people. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, the average for hospitality is 3.5 years, and these guys are here for 18 years and counting, and they are some of the very, very best in their respective roles in the entire nation. But we recognize that as well. We have to make sure that we compensate them appropriately. We have to make sure that we create an environment that is such where everyone knows that their individual department or their individual silo is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that they contribute to something much bigger and much more important, which is the team environment. And the good thing is all 12 of them understand that, and they're willing to make sacrifices and give away the ball and give away the recognition and sort of fame and cachet of being the one who made it happen in order to make sure that the team is successful.
Yes. All right, Jay and Smitty, any good books that you've read lately or favorite books from the past?
Go ahead, Smitty.
Okay. It's funny that Fred, you brought those books up because I know Larry Bossidy. I'm from Pittsfield, Massachusetts, a little town in Western Mass, and I lived there 50 years before I moved here to Fort Myers, and Jack Welch, they used to call him Neutron Jack because of what he did to the power transformer business, taking all those jobs away. But there probably wasn't anybody more that I looked up to in trying to hone a business than Jack Welch. And, Larry Bossidy, Larry Bossidy grew up in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. His family owned a shoe store there. And I got to know Larry Bossidy pretty well when I was at GE. And, you know, I think one of Jack Welch, you know, Jack Welch had a bunch of books like Straight from the Gut. And, you know, he had a lot of books on leadership, and he started that Sig Sigma. And, you know, I really do. I think he was a great inspiration for me. However, you know, my father couldn't stand him because my father worked for Power Transformer, and they ended up getting rid of that business. But it, you know, was two different mindsets. And, you know, over the years, I got to, you know, I always read those, you know, 1 Minute Managers and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And now that I'm in the equipment business, I don't read a lot of those type of books. I'm kind of entering into retirement here. So I try to stay with the, you know, the restaurant equipment magazines and also all different restaurant books. But I think anything the kids can get their hands on, and the more they get into it, I know my daughter, she's really into reading stuff about leadership. And I think that becomes important no matter what business you're going to go into. So.
Thank you. All right, Jay.
Well, I don't have as succinct an answer as Fred and Smitty. I read a lot. I do a lot of reading. I read a lot of business books, a lot of things on leadership in general, because I think a lot can be learned not only from our industry, but from other industries and other professions, and how to apply it to what we're doing. Two of the books that are on my nightstand right now is one book's called Profits Aren't Everything, They're the Only Thing. And it's a matter of looking at your business and make sure you're doing what's profitable. Don't do something because it's fun and it's cool if you're losing money, unless it's a hobby. If it's a business, you got to make money with it. And then the other book I'm reading right now is by Admiral McRaven about make your bed. Every day, make your bed as soon as you get up. And the mindset behind it is that you immediately got a task done. So you've now accomplished something in your day, in your first 10 minutes of your day. So by getting that one little thing checked off your list, you can start working down your entire list and have a sense of accomplishment. It's actually a book that I got from my daughter for her to read. She's 12. So I've got her reading that. My daughter's going to hate me by the time she's old. She's going to have so many books. So I do read all the time. And I think it's important to stay on top of not only your industry, but also to keep your mind sharpened. Mm-hmm. And to make sure that you're always thinking about what can I do better. And Fred had mentioned earlier on interviews, things that are very hard to recover from. For me, it's coming with a pen. If you come to fill out a job application, you're gonna need a pen. I mean, it's that matter of being prepared. I look at it, if you show up to a job application to fill one out and you have to ask for a pen, you didn't plan your day right. You didn't plan for what you were gonna do. And now I have to stop what I'm doing to help you. And that translates in the business world of, okay, so if I ask you to do a task, I'm going to have to end up doing it for you. So my hostess all know if someone shows up, asks for a job application, and then asks for a pen, they write right on the top, no pen. And they don't get a second call back from us.
I love it. I love it. Very good points. Yes. Being prepared and you know, going back to books, anything that you can read that can give you tips on being successful, being prepared. Leadership across the board is a great topic. So any sort of books that deal with leadership, grit, those are all very good topics. We are coming down to the end of our time. I do have one last question from the students. They are wondering if any of you are hiring and what types of jobs you are hiring for. So whoever would like to take that, feel free.
I can take that one. Like most of the businesses down here, we're extremely seasonal at the club. we'll have over 500 people this time of year, and we'll have about 300 people in the off season. So we have a lot of seasonal employees who return on an annual basis, and then some new hires as well. But I will say that we hire a tremendous amount of our front of the house food and beverage, i.e. restaurant workforce from high school students who have no experience at all. And there's probably a little bit of opportunity there now. And there's a much bigger opportunity when we get into the fall around October. But, our assistant general manager, who's the number 2 for me, the person who I will groom to take my job when I leave here. And last time I left here, I had groomed him to be the assistant general manager, and he got that job as well. He started here when he was 17 years old as a busser. And he progressively, over a period of time, got to the point where he's the number 2 person at the largest private club in Florida. So it's a pretty neat growth trajectory that he took, and he did it entirely with attitude and aptitude. He's a smart guy. He always wants to serve. He wants to please. His role here every day is to have members leave here happier than when they arrived. And he does a great job at it. And it helps that he's a smart person. He's going to be a much better general manager than I've ever been. And I know that because he was a much better assistant general manager than I ever was. So I'm excited about that. And the last thing I would say is that I think that one of the things that I adopted, this is more leadership related, is that I embrace the notion that it's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. And once I acknowledge that, because I like 95% of the people in America, they want to be recognized for doing things, and that sort of drives them to some extent. Where once I flipped that switch and said, the best way I can serve the people here at the club or wherever I am is by ensuring that the people around me are successful. That's actually when I started to receive even more success upon myself and realize that. And I also felt more confident and gratified in what I was doing. So that's about it.
Very good words of advice too. Thank you. Let's follow along those lines. Go ahead, Jay, and tell us if you have any openings, and then a piece of closing advice for our students as well.
Well, on the student side, we currently hire students as a hostess, our bussers. We don't hire people under 18 as food servers because of the liquor. You have to be 18 to deliver liquor in the state of Florida. And so we do have openings for hostess and hosts. My current manager, similar to Fred, came to me when she was 17 years old in high school. And she's worked for me ever since. She's in her 30s now. She's worked her way up, worked through all of our areas in our operations, from catering to our office, to serving, to the bar, and is now the manager of the restaurant. So those opportunities definitely exist if you're willing to take them. And that's the other thing, is not everyone's willing to take that opportunity, or you don't see the opportunity. And that's what I would look at. And the biggest advice I would have for people, and we heard it earlier, is not to job hop. I can tell you, looking at applications, if you have someone that changes jobs every 3 to 4 months, and you've done that more than 3 times, we're probably not going to ask you to come back for an interview, because we want to hire long-term. We don't want to hire someone that's only going to be there for a short window. So that's my advice. And I think everyone that's here is taking the first step by just being here. Sometimes just showing up is better than those that don't. And you put yourself ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. Thanks, Jay. And Smitty, any positions that you're hiring for? And then a closing word of advice.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. No, so, I think, going back to when I was in high school, and I was in technical, vocational technical at the time also, when you think about food trades, you think about, working in a restaurant or working in a hotel is maybe, everybody has the idea of becoming an executive chef, but you don't realize how many other opportunities that this food service and hospitality can bring you. Okay. I mean, I know food service salespeople that are making well over $100,000 a year. So, don't just limit yourself. When you're looking at the food service and hospitality business, don't look at it as, oh man, I want to be a dishwasher up to a chef. Look at the different opportunities. And, even in the restaurant equipment business, you're like, what is that? Well, I can tell you, and I think Fred would agree, that if somebody had on their resume that they worked 3 years, for a restaurant equipment company, that can do nothing but help you. I mean, purchasing, you look at how many hotels hiring, sourcing and purchasing people that earn way more than the executive chef makes. So, don't limit yourself. There's a lot of opportunities, that flower's got a lot of petals. It's just not the circle. There's a lot of offshoots to it that you really can make a lot of money at. And, don't be afraid. A lot of those jobs too, you're not working 70, 80 hours a week, So look around, find out everything it has to offer. And like Jay, I want to say thank you, and nice talking with Fred and Jay, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Well, thank you again to all of our panelists, Smitty, Fred, Jay. Thank you for joining us. This was a great panel. I know I got a lot of great feedback from Mr. Shell's class, so we appreciate you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us. Before we jump off, I just want to quickly recap our career ed talks. Can you see that? Today was our hospitality and tourism field. In 2 weeks, on the 24th, we will be back for human services, and we already have quite a great panel of speakers for that lined up. Again, you can check out all of these recordings on our YouTube channel. It's Lee County CTE for career and technical education. So you can do a search on YouTube for that and catch all of these recorded sessions. So thank you again, panelists. Thank you, students. And thank you to my teammates and partners for all of your help with this. Have a great Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great day.
Thank you.